for how long have you been interested in music creation, and how is do you feel like you're kind of shifting more towards that in general, or do you think is there things you prefer about music production over video production? What's your general thought process on that?
So for me, music was a huge kind of part of my life growing up. Like my teenage years, kind of, I guess, especially. I was in like all the school bands and things like that, and wanted to like be a rock star with my friends, and like started a band and would play at like friends' birthday parties and things like that.
Sure.
And it was all mostly like just like classic rock covers and stuff whenever I was a kid, and that was kind of like my identity in high school. Like it's almost like a meme actually on my YouTube channel that I used to have like hair down to my shoulders and a little like
Right.
chin patch and stuff like that. Like I look like the most cliche like heavy metal like stoner dude. So I used to kind of really be super into like rock music and playing rock music and everything like that. And it was actually something whenever I went to university was around the time that I started YouTube. And so as I stopped kind of doing music was when I started doing YouTube. So that there wasn't a
Right.
lot of crossover at first. And eventually it was kind of something that I kept in my life a little bit because I did musicals at university, and there was a lot of kind of the more I guess known jokes in my community from some of my videos were like song parodies and things like that. So
Sure.
I kept up with music a little bit, but it was only actually recently in the last 6 months or so during the whole quarantine that we found ourselves in that I really started kind of reconnecting with, oh my gosh, like I actually forgot that I really enjoy
Sure.
songwriting, and I really enjoy kind of exploring like doing original music that wasn't just like based at comedy or wasn't like a parody
Right.
song and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, it was really interesting to kind of realize that, oh, I used to be really into this, and I kind of stopped because a different kind of creative venture kind of like took my interest for a while. But
Sure.
then now I'm kind of circling around back to it, and the last few months have been kind of like fitting it back into my life and finding out, okay, well, I'm like mostly known for making like video game comedy videos or something like that. How can I kind of how can I fit this new kind of ambitions with music that I have into what I've
Right.
already kind of like built up for myself on the internet?
Sure. And so you kind of stopped doing music stuff when you went into university. You weren't taking like educational music courses, or
Yeah, it was. So I went to university, and initially I was going for computer science, but I wound up getting a degree in theater, and so I did. I did a lot of musicals and stuff at the university, but the thing
sure.
was that the actual music program at the university was one of like the super hardcore like bachelor of music, like you're going to
Right.
eventually become a professional like orchestra player or something like that.
Sure.
So there was a lot of people that were in the actual programs that I kind of hung out with and got to be in musicals with, but it wasn't why I was there at university.
Yeah.
And for some reason, it always kind of felt like, oh, well, I can't like be in a band or something like that. Like everyone else that's kind of into that stuff is
Sure.
like at the professional level and like literally
Yeah.
going to university for this. So it was a little bit of just like kind of natural like different hobbies and different interests like kind of took
Sure.
over while I was at school. But there was also a decent amount of it where it was like, oh, well, the people that are into music here are like really into music and like
Right.
know their stuff. Whereas
Right.
I was a drummer and like I know a little bit of music theory and stuff, but it's like the very basic, like I play these chords on the guitar and they sound nice.
Right. Yeah. I think it's interesting because you hear a lot of stories of people going a different direction from a degree because the program they have at their university is less robust, and it's interesting to hear the perspective of someone kind of avoiding it because it's almost too intense and too I guess good, for lack of a better word, right? And so you hadn't really planned on ever being a full time musician, basically.
Yeah, no, because I was really into music in high school, but whenever I talked about it to like to guidance counselors or like my music teacher at the time, like I was very into like rock drumming and like rock singing and things like that, and it was like, well, you can't really go to university, or at least like the schools that I was looking at, you couldn't
Sure.
really um like study in like that kind of musicianship, or even
Right.
any time that I super did like look into like the theory of like drumming and things like that. Like I was never one to like really be in depth with the rudiments and stuff like that. And
Right.
so I was kind of, I guess, like warned against like if you want to like have music be your job like through university. And I was at the point in my life where I was like, yeah, I go to university after high school. That's just obviously what you do. Where I have a bit
Right.
of a different perspective on that now. But at the time, it was like, yeah, if you go to university for music, like that, it's hardcore and it's like
Sure.
super in depth, and that didn't really appeal to me as much. So I was like, I'm gonna go in a different direction, and then I'll do like music on the side and still
Right.
try and keep up with that.
But you kind of didn't do music on the side. Is that what you're saying for a while?
Yeah, like I wound up kind of after the first few months of university, because initially I was there for computer science was what I was
Right.
initially planning to do, but then I also kind of found in a similar situation I didn't click with that as well
Yeah.
either.
Same here. I was computer science, and then I switched over to graphic design. I was like, this is not what I was expecting.
Yeah, it was like that introductory course, and like kind of like the base logic behind like computer programming was really interesting to me.
Sure.
But then like the second that the complicated math like got in
Right.
there, like the second it had to go to the level past that, I was like, oh, if the rest of this is like, if that's what the rest of this is like, I don't think I'm
Right.
as into that.
Sure.
But I was lucky at the time because I got involved in kind of the musical theater like side programs. Like they weren't for classes or anything like that. It was an extracurricular thing at my university.
Right.
But the musical theater kind of opened me to an actual like theater degree, and that's what I wound up getting. Was I got my degree in acting and everything. But the music part of it, I kind of just kept it at like, oh, I'll sing in these musicals because I have like a decent singing voice. But I never
Sure.
like went super hard on the like studying that, or like I'm gonna do music with my life or anything
Right.
like that.
Hey there. You just watched a clip from my creative podcast. If you'd like to check out the full episode as well as other episodes as soon as they come out, you can support me over on Patreon for the $3 tier, or you can just subscribe here and wait for clips and podcast episodes to come out eventually.